Pixar's Turning Red is loaded with Easter eggs and direct references to Toronto, but it's far from the first time Pixar has included real-life inspirations in their movies and shorts. This video will give you a breakdown of times Disney Pixar has featured real places in their content. So yeah, Toronto is the setting for Turning Red, and May's family lives in Chinatown. The story follows Mei Lee, a grade 8 student, voiced by Rosalie Chiang.
It's gonna be me!
Who navigates, well, teenage angst. She also needs to save enough money to see her favorite boy band, but at least she doesn't have to worry about the skyrocketing rent prices in Ontario's capital. To be honest, I would probably turn into a giant red panda too. Domi Shi, who directed and co-wrote the film, based the plot on her own experiences growing up in a Chinese family in Toronto, so you could expect this would happen. And having lived in Toronto for a decade, here's a few TO tidbits that stood out to me. There are so many Toronto landmarks in Turning Red, but I have to start with the CN Tower, as it's one of Toronto's cityscape icons, and one of the tallest freestanding structures in the world. So it's kinda tough to miss. There are several scenes in the movie where the tower is prominently featured, and having seen the real thing, it honestly looks better animated. The old Sky Dome is right next to the tower, and don't tell me it's not called the Sky Dome, okay? Sure, it's been called many things since, but it's 2002, and back then it was called the Sky Dome. The location of a major plot point in the movie, but I won't ruin that. Oh, by the way, this is your spoiler alert.
OMG!
Daisy Mart is another Toronto-specific landmark that is an old-school convenience store and an old-school reference. After a quick Google search, it seems that this place actually survived the pandemic, so I'll be visiting on my next trip to Toronto. That's if I need a terrible cup of coffee, and hey, it's where Mei Lee's crush works, so I'll go. I think Americans call them donut holes, but if you're doing a film based in the Great White North, Timbits should naturally make their way into a scene or two. They're an iconic treat from the Canadian coffee shop Tim Hortons, originally founded by an ex-hockey player. Kinda cliche, I guess, eh? This next Easter egg apparently exposes a little secret about Pixar. Pixar's campus has a hidden speakeasy bar called the Lucky 7 Bar, and it's hidden behind a bookcase in an animator's office. Even former Apple CEO Steve Jobs was rumored to have frequented this dive bar. Now, supposedly, the film Ratatouille references this hidden lounge, as one of the storefronts in the movie is named Bar de Sept Chanceux. I watched the film and didn't see it, and I can't find much online, so maybe I have some bad intel. But hey, if you have a sudden urge to watch the movie and spot Bar de Sept Chanceux, let me know, and I'll start wearing my glasses more often.
Excuse me. Pardon me. Old man coming through.
Okay, we all love the Academy Award-winning animated Pixar flick Up. It had it all: an elderly widower, Carl, a Cub Scout named Russell, and a talking dog named Doug.
I was hiding under your porch because I love you.
Oh yeah, there was a giant bird named Kevin or something too. But let's get to the real connections and ice cream. Who doesn't like ice cream? Other than them. One interesting real-life place Pixar referenced in Up is on the sidewalk outside Fenton's Creamery, where Russell and Carl are seen eating ice cream. Well, in Oakland, Fenton's is located on Piedmont Avenue. It opened in 1894 until the ice cream shop moved to its current location in the 1960s. So why is this particular ice cream shop zeroed in among the millions of ice cream shops? Well, apparently this is where Rocky Road ice cream was created. Not my favorite, but okay. A favorite Pixar film of mine is Soul. Yeah, it's Soul, not the way Tracy Morgan pronounced it.
And the Golden Globe goes to Sal.
This movie really captured the essence of New York City. Sure, you might get flipped the bird or yelled at by a cab driver, but there's still something about that place that you can't deny. It's magical. Like the moment 22 eats pizza for the first time.
It's so good!
Hopefully she didn't get that slice from the New York native celebrity Pizza Rat. Anyway, some of you may not be aware that Joe is based on a real teacher who lives in New York, Dr. Peter Archer. During the filming, his classroom was used as a guide for Gardner's classroom. Now retired, Archer taught at Nathaniel Hawthorne Middle School. Despite being based in New York, Soul's directors and animators wanted it to not be an exact replica of the streets. They wanted it to be a little more eccentric, without losing any authenticity. Okay, did you know Pixar has its own university? It's true. Pixar University is a development program for people who work at Pixar. Employees choose from a palette of classes, about 14 per week, which they're allowed to miss work to attend. If you didn't know that, you definitely missed these references to Pixar University in Pixar movies such as Toy Story 3 and Finding Nemo. In Toy Story 3, one of Andy's pennants says PU, and an envelope on his bulletin board has the address for a college in Emeryville. Well, Pixar University's studio campus has been on this 22-acre plot in the middle of Emeryville, California, since early 2000. On to Finding Nemo now. Remember Philip Sherman's dentist office? It had a nautical theme with ship's helms, anchors, pictures of fish all over the office walls, and of course the aquarium. Well, the next time you watch Finding Nemo, take a closer look at those office walls. You'll see a photo of the dentist's niece, a floss crocodile poster, a clock with a tooth on it, and a diploma issued by Pixar University's School of Dentistry. So in Finding Nemo, Dr. Sherman's offices are located in Sydney, Australia, sure. But then I guess he went to California for dentistry school at a tech university? Okay, I'm not going to question it. Moving on, as the official headquarters of Pixar, the city of Emeryville, California, definitely gets some serious screen time in Pixar movies. It is a pretty small city located in a corridor between the cities of Berkeley and Oakland, so it's pretty easy to spot when planted on the big screen. The former Pixar headquarters was on West Cutting Boulevard, and that can be found in Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3. We see a commercial for Alice Toy Barn in Toy Story 2, and the location of the toy store is Richmond, where Pixar was before moving to Emeryville. Looking at the map to Alice Toy Barn and Toy Story 2, you can see the 880 and 580 freeways, which are both in the East Bay and 1001 West Cutting Boulevard, home of Pixar's offices and laboratories. In Toy Story 3, there's a sign above Andy's door that says West Cutting Boulevard. Then, a map in The Incredibles looks very similar to a map of Emeryville. If you remember, a crook fires a gun at a police car at the beginning of the film. Using his GPS, Mr. Incredible pinpoints the exact street where the crooks are. It ultimately locks onto Emeryville, which just so happens to have the crooks at Pixar Studios. As it turns out, many of the streets on Mr. Incredible's map match actual Emeryville streets. Cars gives Emeryville a nod as well, as a sign for Emeryville appeared in the film. There was a banner saying the city was closed for a day for the last big race at the Los Angeles International Speedway. Back to Up we go. When Russell showed up at Carl's doorstep and started essentially bothering him, trying to get his assisting the elderly wilderness patch, the last thing he expected was to become best friends with the old widower, but it happened. During the credits sequence, we see a photo of the two buddies, Carl and Russell, going to see Star Wars. Well, that movie theater marquee at the end of Up is actually the Grand Lake Theater in Oakland, California. This theater opened in 1926, and its sign was designated a historical landmark in 1981. This Easter egg has more to it than just a historical landmark, however. When Up first debuted and people saw the end credit picture, many fans speculated that this was a foreshadowing for a new Star Wars film. Disney announced 3 years later, after the release of Up, that it would release a new Star Wars film in 2015. The force was strong with those fans, apparently. How do they call that stuff? I'm impressed. Ideas for several Pixar films were conceived at the Hidden City Cafe in Point Richmond, California. It is well known that employees of Pixar had many very special lunches at Hidden City Cafe, coming up with the ideas for 4 of its films. They outlined ideas at the cafe that went on to become Bug's Life, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, and Wall-E. This cafe was located near Pixar Studios before they moved to Emeryville. Many Pixar fans often stop by the cafe to take in the atmosphere where so many of the studio's films were born. The creators of the incredible animated movie with Billy Crystal gave the cafe its own Easter egg, having the name of its cafe appearing on a license plate in Monsters, Inc. And the cafe itself appears in the movie as well. Although the cafe is no longer around, it used to have memorabilia from Pixar films in its Pixar section. On to another cafe/bakery restaurant that Pixar tips their cap to. Up pays homage to Merritt Restaurant and Bakery. Up has an interesting Easter egg that you can miss very easily. Remember the amount of flair Russell had on his little Cub Scout sash? Well, there was one button on Russell's sash of a hamburger cake with a candle in it. According to Pete Docter, the film's director, he would go to Merritt Bakery almost every week after work to eat cake and talk about the film. Among the things they saw was a hamburger cake, which is shaped like a hamburger. The odd cake stuck in their heads, and during crew meetings, they would always buy one or two as a gag. So yes, Russell's badge depicts a burger cake, but the movie has a lot of Oakland love. Merritt Restaurant and Bakery is near Lake Merritt in Oakland, but unfortunately the bakery was hit by a fire in 2013. But apparently the hamburger cake survived. Those are some serious preservatives. Back to Turning Red for a moment, where if you've never visited Toronto, you've missed the opportunity to ride the old TTC trolleys. Most have now been replaced by fancy trolleys, and that's probably a good thing. Although the TTC trains in Turning Red do invoke a sense of nostalgia in me, they were ready to be replaced for more reasons than I care to mention. TTC stands for the Toronto Transit Commission, and they are May's main means of transportation. And in an impressive bit of detail by the creators of Turning Red, they got the details right, including the vintage cherry red color and the inside. It's every bit as grimy as I remember them. Better yet, the Toronto Transit Commission even gets a full-on name check. While May's mom Ming, voiced by Canadian legend Sandra Oh, may still think of her daughter as just a kid, May's adult transit card would beg to differ. The TTC is also known as the Rocket, or at least that's what me and my friends used to call it. It was anything but a fast way to move around the city. Sticking with the Pixar flick Up, that is synonymous with the balloon house we all learned to love, well, that famous Up house is thought to be on 6th Street in Berkeley, California. Well, apparently Up director Pete Docter found inspiration for the famous house in a home he drove by almost every day on his way to work. It is a well-known house in the Bay Area. The filmmakers have officially refused to give an exact address of the house that inspired the Up film, but many have determined that the house was probably somewhere along 6th Street in Berkeley. 6th Street has several Victorian-style houses, if you decide to drive down it. Pixar's Luca shares a story of friendship and adventure. The director of Luca, Enrico Casarosa, revealed how his childhood inspired the film. The street next to the Pesceria in Luca is Via Vernazza. Vernazza is the town in Italy that Porto Rosso is based in. When you look at the photos next to one another, it's pretty apparent. Another couple little Easter eggs from Luca you might have missed that I just think are cool are the famous Luxo Ball, aka the Pixar Ball. It can be seen on a rooftop in Luca. Here are some other spots where the famous Pixar Ball has made an appearance: Toy Story 1 and 2, The Incredibles, Cars 3, and the list goes on. Another amazing hidden gem in Luca is the Pizza Planet Vespa-mobile. It can be seen in Luca during the race scenes. I just love how random it is. Like, why? Oh well, who cares? It's awesome. Back to Up now. The zip code on Carl's court summons is one more Up Easter egg when Pixar references real-life places. Basically, the court tries to force Carl to relocate his home that he's lived in forever, and tries to move him into a retirement home. The court summons he has in his hands has a zip code. That's San Carlos, California. Fun fact, in 2007, Brad Lewis, who produced Pixar's Ratatouille and directed Cars 2, served as mayor of San Carlos. The attention to detail and mixing in Easter eggs from all over the Pixar multiverse is something they've been doing forever, and that's why I overanalyze the heck out of them.